Dear Greg, a couple of weeks ago I was driving on a road that I wasn't familiar with, and my wife, Rhonda, was in the car with me. It was dark and windy, and I was doing my best to read a map while I was driving. And while I was trying to read the map, a gust of wind may have pushed the car to the edge of the road. Maybe we went over the line a few inches, but Rhonda went crazy and said we were off the shoulder and about to crash. I swerved back to the middle of the road in a second, but she was yelling at me and all excited. She really exaggerated how far off the road we were and made a big deal out of nothing. She keeps bringing it up, too, saying that I just won't admit the truth. But why should I admit to something I don't believe? We have arguments about this kind of thing pretty often. How can I get her to drop this?
This is not a little event because it illustrates a pattern of behavior that can be quite destructive in a relationship. In your own words, you have arguments about this kind of thing pretty often. So it's obvious that something needs to change, because if it's not addressed, these supposedly little issues can cause great harm to a relationship. First, let's look at what actually happened. I wasn't there, but we can easily conclude the following. First, you were driving. Second, you drove off the road in a way that could be considered unsafe. You might argue about how far you drove off the road, but obviously you drove out of the usual limits of safety, or your wife would not have become that excited. People don't get freaked out when you drive in the middle of the road. Now, let's examine what you said about the event. First, you said that a gust of wind may have pushed the car to the edge of the road. Now, I've been driving for almost 40 years, and in all those years, I can't recall a single time that a gust of wind has pushed me over the outside line on the road. Not once. For years, I rode a motorcycle, and on a bike, I have been blown across a lane, but not in a car. So, unless you were driving in a major storm, like a hurricane, which you didn't mention, it seems quite unlikely that the wind was to blame. So, you would mention the wind only in an attempt to avoid responsibility for your behavior. Why is it important to bring up your avoiding responsibility? Because you were defending yourself. And in the instant you engage in defending yourself from someone, how could that person possibly feel as though you care about them? It's simply impossible to defend yourself and unconditionally care for another person at the same time. When you defend yourself, other people can feel it every time, and they don't like it. Rhonda felt it, and she became more animated. She yelled at you. This is why she keeps bringing it up weeks later, because as you're defending yourself, you're telling her that you don't care about her. Until you're completely truthful about what happened, she keeps hearing that unloving message. On so many occasions, we believe that we're having innocent discussions about driving or the laundry or socks on the floor, but that is not the real subject. Anytime a conversation becomes energized, the real subject is always about love. And we'll talk more about this in our next session.